Men used to pick women from the neighborhoods they occupied, or even if we expand to the cities. And now with access to the internet, they think they have more options than they actually do. And from this point on, I'll only be talking about black people, so keep that in mind as I continue. Where a man frequents 9 times out of 10 is going to determine who he's attracted to, particularly if he grew up in one of those households where it's boys were easier to raise, because he does not have a solid foundation from his childhood, and what he thinks comes from media and his friends. So back in the day, you had your neighborhood, you had your city, and that molded who you were attracted to. That's why when you look at older pictures of who got married and stuff, it's going to be a totally different dynamic than current society, because you only had access to so many people, so you didn't have these like delusions of grandeur that you can get, somebody who doesn't exist outside of your bubble. And then maybe the men in the military, when they traveled, they could expand who they knew they were attracted to, at least physically. And that's why you got a bunch of fatherless children all over the world. But yeah, now that we have a lot of men who are like barely leaving their homes, not interacting with their community, or only interacting with their guy friends, they're getting and determining what they like from social media, and that makes it harder to date where they live. And the reason I'm not talking about women is because as women, we know, like, we will sit around with our friends and be showing the guy we're interested in, and they is like, if you like it, I love it. And so we are not always influenced as much by who we like from our friends. And then some of us, we could be living in Russia and be like, I still want to date a black man or a person of color. So that's why I ain't talking about women really. And I've noticed in recent years that there's been this shift among varying archetypes of men who all want the same thing in a woman. They want the toes done, the French tips, the certain kind of makeup, the either they're cool with the lace fronts, or you can have natural hair, but it has to be a certain type of natural hair. And it's like, because we have this global culture through social media and the internet that we're curating, everybody likes the same thing. When I personally hear about those lists and it's the same thing that all the dudes are saying, no matter what they live, it tells me that either they live in a particular city like Atlanta, Houston, or something like that, where that aesthetic is common, or they're perpetually online and not leaving the house where they live. And another aspect of the global culture I'm talking about as far as social media and the internet is that for me living in Los Angeles, women in other cities are kind of experiencing what it is on a smaller scale to live in Los Angeles, because, when I first moved here, I was like, I'm not the aesthetic of what guys like. And I do experience that online a lot, that men thinking just because they don't like me with short hair, or think that, whatever about how I present online, that I'm not attractive in general. So when I'm in Los Angeles, particularly in the valley or certain parts of the city, the non-black areas, black men will look through you. They won't acknowledge you at all. And it's not like I'm talking about being attracted to somebody. I'm talking about acknowledging them as a human being. Like, I've lived in black cities where you just acknowledge somebody as a human being. You don't have to be liking them. You don't have to talk to them. You can just like acknowledge their existence only with their eyes. You don't even have to say hi, but it's like they will act like you're not there. And so I feel like the global culture is becoming that aesthetic where if you don't have those things that I list earlier, men are not going to like you. But also, I moved to Los Angeles thinking I was not moving here. I was moving here for career and not thinking about dating, and I still had 2 boyfriends and multiple other suitors. So, but it's about the places that I go. When you go certain places and when you interact with men who don't live perpetually online, and they exist in the real world, and they curate their life to exist with real human beings, you can find men who are going to like you for your aesthetic. But if you are in like Podunk, some other state, some other city, and you have a man talking about, I need this, that he doesn't even have access to in his city, he is perpetually online. Yeah, and in general, I be reading, and so the more books I read about culture, particularly how the culture globally is changing, our society is going down in the dumps because we're just, this internet technology, AI, social media, it just is taking away the idea of community and changing our lives for the worse.